Georgia's proven to be a team that's really hard to run that football against. What kind of challenge is this for you and this offensive line? And what kind of challenge do you give them that, hey, maybe we're not going to run for 250 yards, but we might need 125.
Right. The biggest thing is you got to keep them honest, and you got to set the tempo in the trenches. And so when we're at our best is when we're balanced and we can run the football. But as you said, number one rush defense last 2 years. They're built to stop the run. They support the run from the secondary level very, very well. But you're gonna have to generate run game. And we saw that last year when we played up at Notre Dame. We didn't have enough run game to keep them honest, so you become one-dimensional. So I think you're not necessarily going to put a statistical number on it, but it's got to be effective. If you can be effective, then it sets up some of your other things. And understanding too that it may not just be a traditional handoff that you count as run game. You may have to use some of your outlet screens, your RPO game to supplement in the run game. But I'm excited for the guys because I think up front they understand that they've been challenged every day since the last performance that they had, and rightfully so. We didn't have our best against Ohio State, but we understand in order to win, you got to win in the trenches on both sides. And so these guys have taken that challenge. They've been really, really tested this fall camp with the scheme and the personnel on our practice field. So we're excited to have an opportunity to play somebody else.
Speaking of the run game, I mean, how is it going into this first game, and who's going to be out there first when you hit the field?
Good question, man. We're trying to figure that out. You see, I was a few minutes late. We're still in there having some meetings with Coach Sweeney talking about personnel. But it's been competitive, just like we talked about last spring. Probably the most competitive position has been the running back position. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds. And same thing up front. We've had some to replace the center, so we've been working some different guys at center and trying to find, some guys that can go inside. If you move like a Bockhorst per se, if you move him to center, who's going to be that next guard? Okay, if Bockhorst is not the guy at center, then who's going to be the center? So we have a ton of competition, going into this last week, and we may not know until 7. What time we play? 7:30. We may not know who's running out there first, but it's a good thing because it's competitive. And it keeps those guys hungry, and then they're going to be grateful and appreciative of their opportunities when they do get them. Game day.
Is it hard at all to build cohesion on the line when you're still trying to figure things out in the week leading up to the game? Would you have preferred to have had this kind of settled entering camp? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think for us, we learned last year that you got to have depth. And we didn't have any depth on the offensive line, and so we were counting on 5 guys. So we feel better about our situation going into it. We feel, good with about 9 guys that we feel like right now, could go play winning football for us. So you would like to be set in place, going into the first game, but we don't see it as a negative. We got a week. All those guys have gotten reps, and for us, it's really just keeping the competition level up. And as we finish of the final touches on the game plan this week, then we'll know once we get to the end of the week who needs to be the first 5 guys to run out there.
Are all those guys healthy at running back going into the Georgia game?
Yeah, it's been actually knock on wood because that's a position right there. Anytime you go into camp, those guys get hit a lot. They do a lot of things in a protection standpoint, but so far we've been pretty healthy at the running back position.
I'm not asking you to give away secrets, but the type of game that you're describing with the RPO perimeter, Will Shipley, that's his game. Mm-hmm. Do you think he's ready for that kind of challenge if you call his number?
Shipley, as we all know, is an exceptional young man, very mature for his age, and you saw that throughout the course of camp. That even when you threw him in there with the ones, he wasn't overwhelmed. And when you give him the ball, he's going to know what to do. He's like Travis as a freshman. You gave Travis the ball as a freshman, he's going to know what to do. But what impressed me is just his understanding of defensive structure and anticipation and blitz pickup. So I have no doubt that when the lights come on, it's not going to be too bright for Will Shipley.
Coach, you got some guys, some sophomores on the offensive line, even Will Putnam, who hasn't really played on the big stage yet, in front of a big crowd, and even DJ himself, and then you got Pace and Shipley, all these guys. Yep. How much of an eye-opener is it going to be for them just playing in that kind of noise level and the communication on offense?
Well, you feel good about Putnam because he played all last year for us. So he was in all of those games, and he played banged up too. He played hurt. So he's been the guy that you haven't called his name for a good reason because he's healthy, he's moving well. So feel good about Putnam. Marcus Tate is another guy. As a freshman, I know you asked about sophomores, but he's a guy that has proven on our practice field that the lights don't seem to be too big, and when you put him in the stadium, because again, when you practice on a practice field, it's a different intensity than when you go to a stadium and scrimmage, and so that's our only way of knowing, how those guys are going to respond when we put them in with coaches off the field and we put them in a scrimmage situation. So he's done a good job there. T.O.'s a guy that so far, has shown that he's taken that next step. Rayburn, is a guy that we've actually played at a lot of different spots. He's battling for that center spot, but what we're seeing is pleasantly, he's been able to show at tackle that he can do a couple things for us to give us some added depth. So, all those guys, you never know until you get into those situations. But that's why we try to create that environment as much as we can here. But I anticipate that those guys, with the leadership that they have around them, and they'll be ready. They'll be ready for the moment.
Derion Kendrick went up against this offense every day in practice for 2 years. He was a part of this offense 3 years ago. Do you have to do anything different because of his inside knowledge of what you guys do, and now he's switched to the other side of the ball?
Now those are the real trade secrets right there that you're asking for. But you got to be mindful of that too. But you also got to understand that it happens in real time too. So you don't want to just change everything that you do and confuse your own guys, but you do want to give some respect to him that he may have some inside knowledge. But I think at the end of the day, once it get going, it's not going to be about what information he was able to pass on. It's going to be about the one-on-one matchups that we get into, and obviously he knows our guys, we know him, so it's going to be that cat and mouse and that battle to see who can play the most disciplined football and go win those one-on-one matchups.
Tony, obviously this is going to be a marquee game. I think college football fans, the casual college football fans are going to say, well, Clemson lost Trevor, they don't have Travis, their offense is going to take a little bit of a hit. Is this a kind of a show me moment for you guys, or do you feel confident that, hey, we are going to continue to be who we are?
I don't think it's a show me moment because that would be opposite of what our philosophy and mentality here is as a program. We're inside out, not outside in. So we're not worried about what everybody on the outside says. But for our guys internally, they understand the responsibility that they have, as the next man up. They understand what the DNA and the lineage of this offense has been, and now it's their turn to put their own mark on it. But at the same time, too, having confidence of, hey, this is what we've done, and in the past, when we transitioned, we've never been outside focused. It's always been inside focused, and we had some examples last year of guys, stepping up in key moments with that next man up mentality. So that's going to be our focus. What we know is this is goal number one for us as a program is to win the opener. We got an outstanding opponent. And it's going to be a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. But at the end of the day, when all that fades, it comes down to, one-on-one matchups. Did you win your matchup? Could you stay fundamentally sound, technically sound when the bullets start flying?
Hey, Tony, you played in this game and you also coached in it. Why is this a rivalry for Clemson?
Well, I think proximity, the tradition and the history of the programs. In recruiting right now, we're going head-to-head on a lot of these young men. I think that there's a tremendous amount of respect from both sides, from the fan base perspective. So that all creates, the rivalry between the two. And then, it was a rivalry back in the day, and I was fortunate enough to play in it in 02 and 03. Didn't win either time, so that wasn't fun. But then to see it come back, in 13-14, was awesome. And then now these guys having an opportunity to play each other, I think is pretty cool.
Tony, what is most impressive? I mean, other than the obvious of their size, but just Georgia's defensive line.
I'm glad you noticed size. They're very big, but you can tell they're very well coached, especially up front. And they play different techniques, which is difficult for a guy to be a two-gapper than to become a one-gap guy in a 4-3 defense. There's different techniques, there's different responsibilities. They do a really good job with that. They play well with their hands. They communicate. They play with great effort. If they get you in long yardage, they really stress you with all the twist game that they have. So outside of their size, I mean, they're very sound. They're coached very well. They got depth, at all positions, man. They can keep running guys out there, and there's no drop off. Obviously, everybody knows about 99 and 95, but 88 comes in there, does a really good job. 90 comes in at defensive end, does a really, really good job. Then you got Nolan and you got Adam coming off the edge, so they can be powerful at the point of attack, but then they also can create a lot of speed coming off the boundary edge.
Have you ever gone up against interior linemen that are quite that big that they have?
I think the last one that I can remember was on our own practice field with Dexter Lawrence. Dexter was a big man that was hard to move. I'm trying to think of just some big guys. Some of the guys at Alabama that we played in the past, and structurally, Kirby's from that Alabama tree defensively, and so they're going to be built very similar. But a guy like number 99, like Jordan, I hadn't seen one like him in a while.
Coach, at tight end, your position group, I think we know what we're going to see from Galloway and Davis. Allen, do you think that Jaelyn Lay is right along with those guys with what he showed in camp?
Jay Lay's had a good camp. And the biggest thing for Jay Lay is getting him to fall in love with the entire position. The position that they play is you're a receiver, you're a run blocker, you're a pass protector. You do all those different things, and he really loves the receiving aspect of it, and just really getting him to buy in. And he did. He did and showed that he's capable, which we all knew he was capable of, but it was just a time for him to make a commitment. So I'm excited where he is. Sage had a really good camp. He's a guy that continues to catch my eye and impress me. Physical at the point of attack, runs really, really well. Still working to develop some of the technical aspects of the receiving position, but excited for him. And then, Brenningstool, the young guy. I think, athletically, he's got a chance to be as good as anybody we've ever had here. Now it's just my job to help him get to the point to where he can go out there and function on his own, so that he's not just a situational guy.
Tony, it's never about just one guy, but how much did the complexion of that wide receiver group change when Justyn was able to come back and start getting hit and
Right.
be a total part of the offense?
I think leadership is critical, and from a leadership standpoint, one guy can make a big difference because he provides that leadership, and then he encourages other guys to come into their own. From a leadership standpoint, I think that was the biggest thing. That changed. That when they saw him running around, it's like, okay, our alpha dog, our leader, is back, and so then now that creates a situation where now guys are going to try and challenge that alpha dog, but at that point, no one had really established themselves as the guy. Kind of waiting on Ross to come back to see where he is. But that's the biggest thing that I've seen is just up the intensity level. Those guys walk around with a little bit more confidence because they know who's the leader, and then it also gives them what they need, the motivation to go challenge themselves and to go challenge him, which brings everybody up to another level.
Coach, with the running backs, if you end up using multiple guys kind of evenly, you see something like that working long term, or will somebody step up and take that job?
You're ready for either or. We had this situation in the past. I think prior to Gallman becoming the starter, we were by committee, and then eventually he kind of took the job and ran with it. And then we were there, like kind of when Travis was coming in, we were by committee, and then eventually he separated. So you're ready for either or. I think it's healthy competition, when you got that by rotation. But if somebody separates, those guys know it. We said it around here before, that game recognizes game. And if somebody just decides to separate, then we'll go with that. But right now, we got a stable of guys that are very, very talented. Not with the exception of Lynn J, not very experienced, but they're highly, highly talented. It's been very, very competitive. So I'm excited to see how that room in particular unfolds this season.
Does it change anything about?
Talk about the freshmen, two college kids, and still a lot of kids that showed up late in camp.
Right.
I know guys that were injured at the end of camp. Their progress, as well as Justyn's progress, as you've seen it,
Right.
since he's hit the field and was able to get the goal shot.
Right, starting with Troy. Troy came in the summer, so he was a little bit behind the Collins boys, but very talented. Biggest thing for him is just picking up the offense. First time through, he's still swimming. Things are moving around. But very pleased with his ability. We just got to get him to the point to where he can function on his own, as opposed to the two Collins, Bo and Dakari. They were here this spring. And big guys that are athletic, can run, can play multiple spots for us. Great after the catch kind of guys, also can go up and get the high points. So I think they fall right in line with the lineage of wideouts, that we've had here. And then Ross, I mean, you can tell that Ross has been working his tail off. I mean, he looks explosive. And also too, you can tell he's been putting in his work from a knowledge standpoint too, because you're able to jump right in and just go function when he hasn't, practiced in a formal setting in about a year and a half.
Outside of Justyn, is anyone separated behind him at receiver?
I'm trying to, Frank's had a good camp, and got us, starting to come on. You're starting to see, what we thought, we had in Joe, and then a Joe. Joe's a guy that we talk about a lot, but he's making tremendous strides. And then sometimes you cut on the tape and you're like, wow, that was a Joe. Just the nuances and the details of the position are starting to emerge now that he has a better understanding of the scheme. He can go play, technically a little bit more sound.
Is EJ right now?
Oh, yeah, EJ. I forgot. Sometimes we don't talk about EJ. You just kind of take EJ for granted. But EJ is very similar to Ross. He's been a guy that's been a putty guy for us. We've had to move him around a little bit, put him in different spots, and he's handled that well. He's electric, just like you've seen the catches that he's able to make. He can make the acrobatic catches, and he's a physical guy too. That's what I like about EJ is he may not be the biggest guy, but man, he'll put his nose in there on the perimeter. So I think he's gonna be a guy that's just gonna be like a given. He's gonna be one of those guys. Just like I kind of forgot about him, but he's had a great camp.
DJ, in terms of his preparation, I know Coach Nene was saying last year when Trevor got COVID that DJ was already in the film room. In terms of how he prepares, does it make you feel better about having him?
Oh yeah, perfect example is we had practice, early practice on Saturday, and I'm walking in the building and he's walking in just ahead of me, to go and watch film on his own. When the players didn't have to be there for another couple of hours, he's putting in there, and then every time I turn around, I could hear his little iPhone playing. He plays this music while he's watching videos, so DJ's in there putting in extra work. But he prepares like a pro. He's ready for his time. The biggest thing is just once we get on the field, being able to flush all the cobwebs and find that rhythm, as a unit as fast as possible, and it starts with him.
Do you know what time that was Saturday?
It was early. It was about 7-ish, and we didn't have practice till 10 o'clock. So he was in here early, first one in.
What was your initial reaction to Taisun being cleared, and what's that process been like of kind of working him back and where he can, time on the field?
Man, I want to find out, if I can get some of that DNA. I got a bad back that's been bothering me for 2 years, and he comes back in 4 months from a ruptured Achilles. Testament to him and just his hard work and his dedication. The biggest thing for me is, and I pointed it out, one day after practice. This was prior to, him being fully cleared, but he'd been working, doing some different things, and just pointed him out, in front of the group, like, man, fellas, this is what it looks like. Here's a young man that had a 8 to 12 month projected injury. Man, he's back out here. He's working his tail off. And why is he doing it? He's doing it for the love of the team and love of the game. And so that was one point in practice that I pointed out Taisun. But just, man, he's a modern day miracle, and it's inspiration for everybody. Hats off to our medical staff for putting together a great plan, a successful surgery, and most importantly, kudos to him for putting in the work to be ready to help his team come September 4th.
Tony, kind of a complicated question, but does the fact that Will is a freshman change and the game is against Georgia open it up to change anything as far as it's a big game, we don't need to get him in, or it's a big game and we need to get him on the field because he might
Talking
be
about
our
Will
best
Taylor
guy.
or
Will
Shipley?
sorry.
No, I mean, like I said, he's been here since January. And if Coach Spiller decides that he's the first one to run out there, then that's who we're going to go with. So I don't think you have any reservations with Shipley.
Are there certain receivers that you'll keep in certain positions, or will all those guys sort of rotate?
Well, it's a lot like the offensive line. You want those guys to be able to play multiple positions in case you get somebody banged up, and then there's certain skill sets that some guys may possess that you may have to put in different positions. So we try to cross-train all those guys, have them ready to play in multiple positions in our offense. It gives us flexibility, it gives us depth, and it also gives us the ability to keep those guys fresh with rotation throughout the game.
Coach, when you talk about the CQ exchange and that first scrimmage.
Yeah.
Was it with quarterback under center, or was it all on shotgun?
No, we were in the gun, and again, you're repping multiple centers with different quarterbacks and just trying to get that. But the last couple of weeks, the last couple about a week or so, it's really stabilized, and we haven't had as many of those issues since the last scrimmage. So I've been pleased with the improvement there too.
Tony, people always talk about what have you seen in this player, what have you seen in that player. What have you seen from CJ? I mean, there's no doubt you probably have had your eye because that was your former position. But where have you seen CJ grow now as he's becoming a coach?
His patience, man, because I keep saying my, like the running backs. I got to remind myself, I coach the tight ends now, my group. So one, I appreciate his patience there with that transition, but just his understanding and knowledge of the offense and being able to manage a room, which frees me up to be able to, to coach the tight ends, because I can just say, hey, CJ, you got that group, you got them. Here are the things that we need to get done from a schematic standpoint, and he takes it and he runs with it. And then the guys have responded well to him. That's always tough too. I coached most of those guys, recruited them, and then you hand them off to a guy that they've been around, but he was kind of in the background. Now he's the alpha dog in the room, and so that's the growth that I've seen with him is just being able to absorb all of that. Right, and then figure out how to interject his own style and his own way of coaching those guys.
He was such a prolific return man. How much can his experience bring to that part of the game?
Oh, it's especially when you are talking to somebody that has done it. It brings a certain, just a higher level of respect and appreciation for it, and that he can teach you the nuances. So I'm excited for those guys to be able to pick his brain in terms of the things that they need to see and the decisions that they need to make in the return game.
Tony, it seems like every winter you're supposed to be coaching somewhere else, right? I mean, I think you're coaching.
Isn't it too early for that?
I was gonna say,
Can we wait a little while?
I was going to just ask you that given the situation that college football is still in, where black men are still having a difficult time being head coaches, do you ever allow yourself to think it's not responsibility, but hey, when I get the job, I'm going to show that I can do this, and I'm going to be a beacon for other people who want to do this. Do you allow yourself to think about that at all?
That's a good question. My whole life I've been in a position where I was responsible for not just myself. I had a sister that was counting on me. I had family members that were counting on me to be successful. So, the way that I approach it and look at it is I fully understand the commitment and the totality of being an offensive coordinator. I have an idea of what it is to be a head coach, the totality of it, and so it's not a race thing. It's a responsibility thing, and so for me, that's where I'll make my decisions. Going forward is the responsibility. Now, there's going to be some people that are going to benefit because of that, but for me, my approach is just trying to understand the total responsibility involved with whatever, and that can be changing. That could grow over time. The same thing with being a dad. Understanding the totality of being a dad and what my responsibilities are. So that's the way that I approach things, and I try to think, and I think that it's going to benefit. And then there's going to be challenges too that I'm still going to have to grow through whenever that time does come down the road. But it's kind of early for that question right now. I'm focused on Georgia and trying to figure out how we can run the ball. No calls from the Cowboys. And if they're calling right now, then obviously something went wrong.
We'll take one or two from Zoom real quick.
Hey, Tony, Ross Dillon, Sports Illustrated, how you doing?
Hold on 1 second.
Ross, hang tight.
Sorry? Oh, go ahead. Where am I at? Right here? Go ahead. Right here, and I'm coming back.
Taisun didn't play in either of the two scrimmages. I'm wondering what he showed over the last week to make a convincing case that he's the number 2 guy.
Right. Since he's been cleared, he's been in there, with some of the competitive stuff. Obviously, we're not going to the ground, but it's full speed. It's live up top, and then if he gets out of the pocket, then it's a thud situation where we tag off and whatnot. But biggest thing for me is just his decision making, right? And then just some of the reactions that you see in the pocket. That lets you know as a coach that, man, he feels comfortable with where he is from a physical standpoint. Just some of the change of direction and some of the burst things, that I saw on him if a play broke down and being able to scramble and still extend a play, lets us know or gives us confidence that he has confidence in his leg.
All right, we'll go to Zoom. Ross Dellinger, go ahead.
Hey, Tony, how you doing?
Good. Uh-oh.
Kim, and he was telling me about how you made the Michelin plant there the company's most productive. Can you walk me through what you remember just about that job and the decision to leave it?
So I need to pay Kim a little extra for giving me credit, that much credit. But you know, and I gotta throw it back on Kim because you know when I got out of school, that's what I believe I wanted to do. I wanted to be an engineer. You know, I was gonna go do that, get my White House with a picket fence, 2.5 kids. I was gonna live the American dream. You know, and I know you can't have 2.5 kids. Somebody actually, I said that before. Somebody's like, he's an engineer. There's no such thing as 2.5 kids. But on average, I guess that's the average family size when you start averaging things. You get fractions. But anyway, he saw that I was struggling a little bit, you know, internally because things were going great. I had a great working relationship with him and all my colleagues, and you know, things were improving with some of the work that I got credit for, but it really wasn't me. It was just, you know, being able to transfer information from those that are on the production floor that actually touch the product every day back to management. And I think, you know, as a football player, being a part of a team is really what, you know, inspired that or created the chemistry and cohesion for us to be able to work together as an industrial engineer and production floor employees. But you know, he saw that I was struggling a little bit because when I would go home at night or on the weekends, all I would do was go out to eat and just kind of wish that it was always Saturday so I didn't have to go back to work. Not because I didn't enjoy my job, it's just I didn't feel like I was fulfilling a purpose. And so he was the one that actually made the connection over at Easley High School for me to be able to go over there and volunteer in the spring and spring ball to see if that's something I wanted to do. So I got to give a lot of credit back to Kim for seeing that that was something that was missing and encouraging me, as opposed to being selfish and say, no, you have such a great career ahead of you here at Michelin. You're doing good things. Stay here. No, he inspired me and encouraged me to go chase my dream, which was to get back into coaching football.
Thank you, Tony.
All right. Thank y'all. All right. Y'all be good.